you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Matt Delaney. Joining me this week, Don Baker. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
And we'll be talking about more buzzwords of ignorance in just a couple minutes, but we are live Sunday, February 20th, 2011 from the public access studios at Channel Austin here in Austin, Texas. We are here every Sunday from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. approximately. And the program is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more about the ACA by visiting the website www.atheist-community.org, and more about this program by going to www.atheist-experience.com. And in addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. And we were live yesterday. You can find out more at nonprofitsradio.com. That's Prophets. We did a live show yesterday. It was Beth and I did a show with Russell and Linnea as kind of a second couples show where we talked about, actually Russell addressed the Zeitgeist movement. And we also talked a little bit about some gay bashing that's been going on in legislatures around the country, and a few other interesting details. So you can visit the website and listen to the latest episode, or get it as a podcast, and also visit the archives there. After this program is over, we get together for dinner, and we've been going to El Arroyo, and they're going to put the address up at the bottom of the screen because we've switched, and not everybody knows where El Arroyo is. We're on until 5:30, and then we'll be down there around 6 o'clock or so. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come. It's 1624 West 5th Street near Mopac. You don't have to be a member to attend, but if you come down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, please don't. Just send me an email, and I'll be happy to talk to you there, or even visit your church. You can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-hosts, and some of the people behind the scenes as well. There's a frequently asked questions page up at our website. And in addition to the media endeavors that we engage in, and the vast amount of emails that we get, which, by the way, we can't respond to all of them, and the interactions on Facebook and the interactions at Iron Chariots Wiki and all these other things, we also do a happy hour on Thursdays at the Dog and Duck. We do a lecture series on the first Sunday of the month at the Austin History Center. We do a street cleanup, which evidently terrifies Billy Ray Cyrus, and blood drives and other things. All those things are available at the calendar at the ACA website, so you can go there for more information. Don's back with us, and as I mentioned, we're going to talk more about buzzwords of ignorance, and I'm going to try and get him as much time as we can. And today's buzzword is
family values.
Family values.
Okay.
Take it away.
So a buzzword of ignorance, what do I mean by that? Well, that's a word or phrase used for its emotional connotation, where the speaker relies on the assumed ignorance of the audience who is being manipulated. And so this is basically a propaganda term or a small phrase embodying a big lie. And I've done a series on these. I've talked in the past about Christian nation, Judeo-Christian, sacred, and today's buzzword of ignorance is family values. Certainly everybody's heard that in the culture wars. So family values are also known as Christian values. They carry this emotional connotation that everybody's pro-family. You know, it's a thing called a glittering generality, right? It's something that gosh, you got to be behind it, and everyone wants to protect children. So if you're against these things, you must be a real oddball. And so these sorts of phrases have a lot of political traction because everybody's pro-family, blah blah blah, right? But there's a bait and switch going on. What the family values that are being promoted by these Christian groups mean, what they mean by that is a lot different than what it might mean to you and me. To you and me, it might mean loving and taking care of each other. But to them, it's something, I think it means something much more insidious. So I wanted to talk today about what the religious right really means by family values, which is control of sex, and the fact how they fund their efforts, which is the business of hate, and then hit a couple of the glaring ironies and lies and hypocrisy in this movement. So the conclusion here, like with all of these terms I'm bringing up, is they're really a framework of lies. Right. And this one goes all the way down. And Christians apparently seem to need propaganda to advance their cause, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have a need for these sorts of things. So what does the religious right mean by family values? Well, you might say it's a focus on sex. So based on the Wikipedia, which kind of listed a lot of the ideals of the religious right in this area, let me run through them real quick. Promotion of traditional marriage and opposed to sex outside of conventional marriage, premarital sex, adultery, polygamy, bestiality, incest. Okay, that's one thing. Support for a rollback of various aspects of feminism and return to the traditional role of women in the family, oppression of same-sex marriage, support for traditional education and parental involvement in that education, including things like vouchers and homeschooling, support for complementarianism, which is more of this gender roles idea that women should be at home raising the kids and not out in the workplace, opposition to legalization of abortion, and policies that instead encourage abstinence and adoption, support for abstinence education exclusively regarding sex risks associated with early sexual activity, and then sabotage of sex education as human sexual behavior, safe sex, and birth control.
I like the focus on sex aspect, because I can just picture, and somebody out there on YouTube probably needs to get busy making this video where, hello, I'm James Dobson for Focus on Sex.
Right. Right. And so there's a lot of spin going on, right? And the last one is support for policies that are said to protect children from obscenity and exploitation. And there's an irony there. But if you read through these again, you'll see that what we're talking about here is control of sex, especially anything outside marriage, and especially anything not involving the man in that marriage. So the man gets to have whatever sex he wants, make as many children as he wants, but the women have to be subservient, and there's no sex at all outside of marriage. And from American Family Values, one of their mission statements is about the family. AFA works to strengthen families, to protect families from government intrusion, and to preserve the dignity of marriage as the conjugal union of husband and wife. So they want the husband and wife having sex. So anyway, it's all very amusing to me. Another theme here is we talked about control of sex, but also control of children, especially the education. They want kids to grow up in authoritarian homes where the wife is subservient to the father. There's no thinking involved. There's no dialogue. It's all blind obedience. I've talked about authoritarianism on a separate show, but you can go look that up. And the reason for this is the best way to transmit Christianity to those kids, is you believe this and don't think.
It's a sexually transmitted disease.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. There's a claim of no exploitation, but that's exactly what they're doing. They're sabotaging the self-sufficiency of these kids, and I'll hit on that again later. So the whole thing is about co-opting the family structure to make more believers, or turning believers into sheep. So that's the gist of family values. How do they fund themselves? Well, they fund themselves through promoting hatred, and they do this through vilifying gays, and that seems to be a kind of the hallmark of these family values groups. Is they pretty much all of them are in the business of selling propaganda against gays in order to sort of raise money here's this enemy that you should be afraid of. We're going to raise money, combating this enemy, and the one thing they really fear, these groups really fear, is gays becoming normal. So they really hate the idea of gays being in the military. They hate the idea of same-sex marriage, because at the end of the day, gays are going to be your neighbors. They're going to live lifestyles very much like yours. They're going to have, potentially kids. They're going to have homes. They're going to, mow their lawns and do the boring thing that everybody else is doing. But they're terrified of normality. And you hear this quote like, During the lifetime of the AFA, the movement to normalize homosexual behavior has exploded on the American scene. So they're afraid of this. Why are they afraid of this? Because if gays are normal, then they can't sell the hatred of them. So that's what's going on here. Is they lose their enemy, they lose their power. So my claim here is that they are selling hateful propaganda against gays. Let's look at propaganda. So the king of gay propaganda in the Christian right is a guy by the name of Paul Cameron, who is with the Family Research Institute, and he's like the David Barton for gays. He's out there. He makes his money making stuff up, and nearly every scandalous statement you've ever heard about gays was either embellished or invented by this man. And he is, you know, he's great about making links with pedophilia, which is not a strong link. It's made much stronger than it is. It really is. He's made the claim that the Nazis were controlled by gays, and that the Holocaust was a result of gays, and that gays are actively spreading diseases, and there's moral depravity. And this guy is really pretty obsessed about gays, and you wonder if he doesn't protest too much. He's really kind of almost a cartoon. So he's been discredited as a Christian propagandist. He's been discredited by a number of professional societies that have actually issued 3 different societies that have issued statements against him. And people are slowly getting the message that this guy's bad news, and his research, which is all fake, is bad news. So how have the family values groups responded to that? Have they retracted those statements? No. What they've done is they've kept the lies and thrown out the attribution to this guy Paul Cameron. They basically are keeping all the lies, but they've gotten rid of Paul Cameron, and they're trying to hide him in the closet. What an irony there. So the lives are alive and well, and they've actually created some fake professional societies to put some sciencey sort of spin on these lies, and they've been out promoting more lies. So remember, lies are the path to more money with these groups. So let's see. There's a group by the name of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which does a great job of talking about this. They have a good article on Paul Cameron called The Fabulist, and they have an article called The Holy War, which is about how Christian groups are making money off vilifying gays. So we've talked about propaganda. Now let's talk about hate. Well, these propaganda things have had an effect. In fact, they have been successful, I'd say. So gays are the most vilified group in the United States. They are people that are more than twice as likely to be attacked in a violent hate crime as Jews or blacks, and they are more than 4 times as likely to be attacked than Muslims, and 14 times more likely than as Latinos. So this is Christianity. This is an effect of Christianity. There are no other groups out there that are targeting gays like this, and so this is a direct effect of Christianity in our society. So anyway,
you talk about how they're willing to keep the lies that he spread and then kick him out. It's worth noting that, for example, you don't see any of the Focus on the Family people at the Westboro Baptist Church protests. They won't go out there and side with them because these people are generally distasteful. Mm-hmm. The Phelps family, by and large, are just disgusting. But they are exercising their free speech. And the reason that the American Family Association and others don't come out against them is, for one, they can't, because the Phelps message is at least as biblically sound as anybody else's. And number 2, because they're actually doing them a favor. They're out there doing this kind of fear mongering and spreading of hatred that's the same. It's you know, somebody else looks a little bit nicer. Yeah. You know, it's the Focus on the Family is the Phelps group in, you know, nicer suits.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
With better advertising. Yeah, instead of a homemade sign that they store in the garage, they get on cable networks and do fancy graphics.
They're very influential with politicians. Well, they had a little fly in the ointment.